Growth and scale is all about mindset. There's a mindset you need to adopt that we don't necessarily naturally adopt. We've got clients that just live and breathe that, and we've got clients that have had to train themselves to do that. What I'm talking about is, in order to really leverage custom software, generally you need to be an established growing business. Okay, what that means is you've got some years behind you already. That means you've got your processes, you've got your systems, you've got the way we do things. In order to truly scale effectively, you need to be prepared to drop it all. Not only that, but you need to be prepared to invest in your future. If you've got to that position, what you've got is generally working all right. So you have to be prepared to not accept all right. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Not true. If it's slowing you down, you need to find another way. But if it ain't broke, don't fix it, that's so part of our human nature. It's safe, right? This goes all the way back to lizard brain. Okay, I might have gone through hell to get here, but I'm still alive, so let's just carry on following that same pattern. That's neuroscience. That's how we think. So to actually prepared to go, this is working all right, but we can do better, is a dramatic mindset shift. When you embrace that mindset, however, that's when magic happens. So you have to be prepared to say, if I spend X amount of money, the gains that I'm going to receive are going to be so many times more. And that's kind of a bet in some ways, although, of course, there are very clear strategies and ways of doing it. This is the stuff I talk about, the lean development, creating your MVP, testing your assumptions. All of this stuff are ways to strategically and carefully and safely progress through the digital transformation journey. But it is a journey, and it's a long one in many cases. So you need to be prepared to go, okay, I have the vision of where I'm headed, and I'm prepared to invest in getting there. And that's a challenging thing. If something is working okay, the idea of changing the way you do it and spending money on that thing is anathema to some people. And so it's not for everyone. But that mindset shift is the entrepreneur mindset. Daniel Priestley once said you need to be willing to bet the farm. And if you're willing to bet the farm, there are safe ways to do so and to guarantee your return. But it does require a mindset shift that's not available to everyone. I think you can train yourself to do it, but it doesn't come natural. I've got money in the bank. Why am I going to spend it on something that fixes something that's not broken? Because the potential returns can be massive if you're prepared to bet that farm.
So true. That's a cool one. It's very true, isn't it?
You can apply that directly to business. Okay, so why invest the money? Why invest the money? Full stop. Right. So we have to think: what do we want the money for? What are we holding on to it for? The money is what we exchange for our lifestyles. Okay, essentially, when we get paid, now by lifestyle I could mean just living, right? I could mean just paying for food and so on. But when you're working at a business level, especially a growing business level, the potential amplification of lifestyle for everyone is massive. And there's another Daniel Priestley quote, which he said on a podcast, and I thought it was brilliant. He said, if you had a box and you knew, because it was a magical box, every time you put £1 in, £7 came out, how much money would you put in the box? So if you can create that magical box, and I believe that software is how you create that magical box, once you've worked out that algorithm, you can carefully invest that money, because otherwise what we do is we end up with just what you said then, the version of having your groceries sitting on the floor instead of in a new cupboard, because why spend the money on the cupboard? The groceries are fine on the floor. But actually, how do we want to live our lives? What kind of life do we want for us and for our team? I think we want rich lives. I think we want rewarding lives. And I don't think that enough is always enough. I think we can do better than that. And that acceptance of the mediocre. And by mediocre, what I mean is living less than what you're capable of living. We so easily accept mediocre. Why should we accept mediocre? Let's live at the level we're capable of living.
But you can see, like, I've come
That's a good
across.
video just started, by the way.
Oh shit,
Awesome.
that's what we're doing.
Yeah.
I've come across loads of people in, like, obviously working life, where some are all up for it, and others are just like, well, what's the point? It works.
Well, I
Yeah,
said
but
it to...
looks like your website. Well, it's fine, but it doesn't function great. It doesn't have this. You could
Me and Lisa, that's each other, because where we live now is lovely, but we'd like to increase. We need a second parking space when I learn to drive. I'd love a garden. I'd love to be able to, like in my old bedroom, put a bedside table either side of the bed. At the moment it's too small. And it's all lovely, like where we are is so nice, but I said before, because then we were like, well, if we got like a 3-bedroom house, that's the kind of house we want when we have kids. I was like, no, I don't want to go straight to that house. I'm talking an upgrade in between. Like we can, with the incomes that we're on, and we've been together for a while, like we know, like we can do a little bit better.
Okay, so both are compatible. Okay, so this goes back to something that we've spoken about before. Okay, if you have that end result in mind, then the moment you envisage that end result and recognize where you're at now, which is what you just did, you're creating psychological tension. And our brains follow the path of least resistance. This goes back to the whole lizard brain thing, right? Lizard brain follows the path of least resistance. This is the easiest way to stay alive, essentially, is what happens. But obviously the brains have evolved, but that's what's happening. So just like if you draw a line on a beach in sand and pour some water, it's going to just flow towards the sea, right? That's how we live. That's how our brains work. Okay, so the path of least resistance, that path is dependent on the structures you create. And you create structures by saying, this is my goal, and this is where I'm at. Immediately you create that psychological tension, you've created a structure to follow for yourself. What you're doing is telling your subconscious what's important. There's an intentionality in that that's magical. And so once you've told your subconscious what's important, all of a sudden, what it receives changes, okay? So we've spoken about this before, but it's the key to everything, right? So your brain can process, if we're talking about information, I think it's something like we receive 8 to 10 million bits per second, okay, of information. Our brain can process 50, not 50 million, 50 bits per second, but we're receiving 8 to 10 million. So it has to decide what's important. It bases that on the structures that you create. So if you create a new structure based on your goals, in this case, this is the dream house, okay? Dream house, dream garden, dream swimming pool, sauna, jacuzzi, gym, the whole hog. You've told your subconscious that's what's important. And all of a sudden, what happens is it changes the filters. It stops blocking out certain things and it notices other things, and then you see the opportunities. And that's actually what we were talking about earlier, about this mindset of what's it worth to invest? Because all of a sudden, if you can see where you're headed, hey, if I do this, and this is just what you said you're doing, if I do this, then I'll have this. And then if I do this, then I'll have this. So see what I mean by they're compatible. So if your end goal is the in-between step, then you're selling yourself short, because your brain might notice a way of skipping 3 steps to get to the goal. But if you try and do it yourself, you're not giving it the chance to do that. So dream big, have the massive end goal in mind. Now, we're not talking about necessarily numbers in the bank account. We're talking about things that will make you feel the way you want to feel. What will make you feel great? What would you love to create purely because you want to create it? And that is where the magic happens. Because if you can imagine that dream goal, if you can imagine that house and you and your partner just beautifully happy and relaxed and creative and romantic and all the stuff that you might want in your, if you can imagine that and feel what it would be like, that's how you tell your subconscious with the feeling what's important, and it bloody well goes for it. And all of a sudden you're skipping 3 or 4 steps. I wish I'd known that 20 years ago.
That's also a really good video. I did that with this job, like when I was in my job before at MaxPack, which is like not, if you looked at it on my CV, you'd be like, why did you go to that? Like it was more money than what I was on at the council. I was desperate to get away from the council, so I just did it. And then when you messaged me and we talked about it, I was thinking, this job is a lot less money, but this is what I want to be doing. And my dad always, he says like the easy option is staying in what you're in now, and you just cruise, and it's close to where you live. You're 2 minutes away from home. It's good salary. And I was like, but it's not what I want to do. And then I saw the bigger picture of like, oh my god, I could actually be doing like content for people for a living, and like. So then I went for it, and that was like not the harder option, but it was a pay cut, and it was further away from
it was the risk. It's just what we're talking about. It was the risk. I totally get it. Yeah. But you had the sense of that.
It changes your brain chemistry.
The type of person though, I think you've got to be. I think some people would have dismissed that.
Yeah, entirely.
Yeah, and that's what we're talking about. Actually, I was going to say the entrepreneur mindset, but I think what we're talking about is the creative mindset. Yeah. What do we want to create?
Yeah.
That's what we're talking about, and that's what the entrepreneur mindset is. But you can apply it to the creator mindset when we're talking about content creators and that kind of thing. There's a creative mindset. What would I like to create purely because I'd like to create it? And those that follow that, rather than what would I like to create because it might earn me £1 million, there's an energy difference in those types of creators.
Someone, so Caroline does the accounts for someone, she has done for years and years, and I kind of know my know it's son as well, and he's got a surveying company, and he has that mindset of why change, and he could have grown like massively, he was like his where the office is at home, so he's got like no fees, but location wise it's quite good, but just mindset.
And I mean there's a flip side to this as well, because there are people that want to grow and scale for the sake of growing and scaling, which is why I try and push aside how much money do you want in the bank. It's actually because we don't know how much money we might need to achieve that same thing. The end result that you get from that money, start there, and the universe will rearrange and make the right amount appear.
I always tell Olivia she can do anything.
Yeah.
She's like, I can't do it. Yes, you can. You can do it.
Well, but she'd go, don't be ridiculous. She goes, if you're going to tell me you can't do something, I don't want to hear it. I'd be like, what? She goes, I'm going to walk out. And I'm like, no, don't. I can do it. She goes, that's better.
That's awesome.
She'd be like, don't be talking like that. That's not how we talk.
That's brilliant.
Although coming from a realist, I think there's something that I do appreciate. I think, do you know what, you've got to instill it into the younger generation that you can do it.
Yeah.
You'll find a way. You'll do it. Sometimes, I'm like.
That's one of my favourite quotes. Whether you think you can or whether you think you can't, you're right.
I love that one. You're right.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
Because it's what you're telling your subconscious.
You probably won't then.
No, you definitely won't. You definitely won't. It's because it's what you tell your subconscious. Whatever you tell your subconscious goes, all right then.
Yeah.
Let's make that so.
Yeah.
So you have to be really careful about your self-talk.
It's like baking. Can't bake.
Well, you probably are, because you're telling yourself.
There you go.
That.
Cool. Shall we wrap up?
Yeah.